There are three things that can compromise your security in a grid down power outage situation. This is Urban Sentinel. Let's get into it. Now, right off the top, this situation is not you simply lost power in your residence, power went out on your street, drunk driver knocked down a pole, took out the power for the 3 blocks around you. This is a widespread, wide area. Your town, the town next to you, the next 3 towns over, an entire region of your state or multiple states, the power is out. It could be for primarily one of 2 reasons. Either a cyber attack where hackers have infiltrated the control systems, blocked out the utility companies, so the infrastructure itself is still good. Transformers still work, lines are still up, but the utility companies have no way to access, control, or distribute the power. The second way is a direct physical attack. Something has taken out a substation. And as we can remember, in 2003, I believe it was a set of transformer lines and a transformer itself got hit, and it took out a wide area through cascading failures of the power grid from New York City all the way up into Ohio, up into Canada, where just outside of those regions, over in New England and in Pennsylvania and going westward, everything was fine. But under those conditions where you're going to be without power, not for a few minutes or a couple of hours or a day, we're talking several weeks to possibly longer, depending upon what the situation is. Your safety and security is something that you need to think about, and it starts with the 3 things of sight, sound, and smell. We're going to go for right off the top visual, sight. It's not about having batteries and candles and flashlights and all that sort of stuff. That is important. That's stuff that you should have anyway. It's about what people can see during the day and at night in your place. Now, if you've got batteries and flashlights stacked up and you're ready to go, great. But other people sitting in the dark across the street, maybe in the same building as you, are going to start to notice those little flickers of light moving under the doors, through the cracks of the windows, things like that. So yes, you need to operate a level of visual security, but it's not just simply light security. It's also what people have seen you bring in. Now this, I'm going to say, I'm forming this video more for people that live in apartment buildings, in duplexes, in common shared areas, row houses, places where there are multiple people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, immediately around where you go in and out to get into your place. This is less for people that, even if you live in a suburban neighborhood where you have a house, but your house is 15 feet away from the next person's house, where you can look right out of your kitchen window into their kitchen window and see what they're eating for breakfast. That kind of level of closeness versus someone who lives in a wider area of a rural community where it might be 200, 300 feet away, then there's the next neighbor's house. That's a totally different situation. Some of the rules apply, but it's a different scenario altogether. So bringing it back into what people see, what they see you coming in and coming out with, doesn't really in that moment mean much to them, but it becomes that sort of afterthought in a scenario where they don't have power. Especially, we're looking at, it's springtime, it's going to get warmer, it'll get hot. Hot weather blackouts are, I feel, far worse to one extent than a cold weather blackout. So in this sense, when it gets hot, people get miserable, they get cranky, and they want some level of comfort, some level of relief. And if they feel or find out or realize that someone nearby, could be the apartment right next to them, person across the street, is living the grand life in style and comfort, that can cause some problems, but that's a separate issue altogether. So you want to be able to limit what people see that you have. Even when it comes to a situation where your power is out, AC is not working, window fans aren't working, you have to have your windows open, fine. Keep whatever preps, whatever supplies you have hidden visually. Put them against the wall that has the windows and keep them below the windowsill line, because someone can look in a window, see whatever's across from the window and outwards to a certain degree and angle depending upon where they are at. But it's much more difficult to look and see what is directly below that window along those same walls. So if you have stuff stacked out, move it to those areas. If you have to interact with people, interact with them with your apartment door closed, or interact through a window that you can talk to them from, rather than opening up your door and allowing them either in or to be able to have a wider field of view into your apartment, or step out if you feel it's a safer thing to do and close the door behind you. But these are small things that you have to think about on the visual aspect. On the acoustic aspect, it really comes down to, if you're a heavy walker, as an example, and you stomp around just your normal day, walking like two pistons from an engine just banging on the floor, if it's day 3 of a blackout and there's been no power, there's no AC, and you're doing that, doesn't matter whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, you're gonna piss some people off. Learn to walk softly. Learn to limit the noise, which then limits the disturbance, which then limits the irritation that other people may have, because everyone's hot, everyone's miserable. You don't need to add to that. You want to be the neighbor that they forget is there, or at the minimum, you want to be the neighbor that if they're going to kill somebody, it's not going to be you. These are just little small tips, little things that you need to think about. Now, as far as the smell goes, that's what it comes down to: cooking. Not about personal hygiene, it's about cooking. One, if it is hot, you're probably not going to be trying to turn on your stove, even if it's a gas stove, or trying to cook on the grill, unless you are outside, you have an actual area outside that you can do that, which means that's also what most people aren't going to be doing, is cooking. So you still want to limit the smell of food. So you want to think about foods that you eat right out the can, right out the box, that require very little, if no preparation whatsoever, other than maybe pour some water in, stir it a couple times, and then you eat it. So you want to think about that, how the scent of the food travels, because again, a few hours in a power outage, no one's really going to notice. You're probably still going to have people milling about, but by day 3 of the power outage, you've got people just hanging out doing nothing, and you also have people looking for something to do. And if that means breaking into places, going to see where that smell is coming from, where that sound is coming from, that's about the time that they start getting, agitated and start going out. So you want to make sure that you don't become a beacon of curiosity to people in those situations. Now, as far as when the power does go out, everyone knows that, yes, you want to keep your food as fresh as possible, keep it in the freezer and refrigerator, close it up. Now, brownouts and blackouts happen all the time. Brownouts, you don't really have a notification of when that's going to happen. They have computer systems that control it, and they will reduce power in certain areas for X amount of time. So you might notice your lights dim. Sometimes you might notice your TV flickers, something happens. The power's been reduced, but not enough to shut it off, just enough to reduce a wide area draw until they can bounce out the power, and then it comes back up again. Whereas a blackout, aside from physical attacks, physical damage, or direct cyber attacks, utility companies do shut off power when they see that the systems are telling that there's a large power draw in an area, too many people with ACs on all at the same time. They will cut power to areas like that, allowing the surge to drop, and then they will regulate and distribute the power back up, this section here, this section here, this section here, a little bit at a time, until they can maintain an optimum performance level. Sometimes they do maintenance work, they do line work, transformer work, they'll send out a notification, but usually for a blackout controlled by the actual utility company, it happens in the immediate sense that they are going to avoid a cascading failure. So they may not have enough time to notify you, or when they do send out the notification, literally at the time the notification goes out, 2 Mississippi later, boom, power shut off. So you may not even literally get the notification before the actual power goes out. But with those things that you have to keep in mind, you also think about, as I said with the refrigerator, depending upon how long it's going to be, if you can, one, turn up or increase the cooling of your refrigerator and your freezer beforehand, especially if you think that you've got a few hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours to do that, then when the power does shut off, everything in there is much colder and will last a little bit longer. If you can, you get yourself some coolers and bags of ice, put some of the food that you're going to be eating in there, so this way you only open up that small cooler, take out that food, and prep that food. You don't have to keep opening and closing the refrigerators, because it's not about the compressor motor being hot, because the refrigerator is well insulated. The heat from the compressor motor doesn't affect the inside of the refrigerator. What affects it is you opening up, that warm air gets pulled inside, and then you close it and warmer air is trapped inside. That's where the draw is. A little thing you could also do, it's more of an extreme level, but if you have a washing machine, top loading washing machine, you can get bags of ice and start putting them into the washing machine and store a lot of your perishables in that, because the perishables that are in the refrigerator stay cold because of the cold air, but you put them in contact with the bags of ice. Maybe you put 3 bags in the bottom in the bag, and then you break open a couple bags, put some food in, and then break open a few more bags, put it on top. They'll stay colder in direct contact with the ice longer than they would in just simply contact with cold air if there's no power running through the system in the refrigerator. So that's something you can think about. That does require, though, that you get to a place that sells ice quickly enough and can get all the ice back to do that. You can't wait till the day after the power has been out to try to go to that close by gas station, because they're most likely, one, have lost power, so the ice that was there will have been melted, or two, they will have sold out already. So it's one of those things where it's impromptu, but if you're going to do it, you got to decide to do it right then and there. As far as staying cool in the hot weather, best advice, again, keep your windows open, let the breeze blow through. If you have rooms that have opposite windows, get a little cross breeze going. But again, keep your important stuff sequestered, secluded, off to the side, out of the way, so it's less of a visual attraction, because you may think that no one can see you, but you might be on a 3rd floor, 5th floor, 8th floor apartment. There could be someone a building across the street, 2 buildings over, that has nothing to do all day long, especially in that situation, than just stare out the window. Maybe they're looking at you, maybe they're just looking around, and they see those little things, those little cues. No different than if you live in an apartment building and you know that the noise above you is from the bedroom. You can hear when someone goes to the bathroom. You know when someone's walking down the hallway to go to the kitchen. You can tell the difference between the neighbor that's 6'3" and 300 pounds walking, and their spouse that's 5'6" and 140 pounds walking. The pattern and pacing is different of the footfalls. The sound is different. You're getting a visual interpretation just from the acoustics alone. And those little things like that, where people see one thing, they hear one thing, they smell one thing, starts to paint the picture in the mind about what's going on. And it's about reducing your signature, your broadcasting signature in those scenarios. Now, you can't stop or avoid people that are determined to go door to door, floor to floor, trying to figure out who's got what, whatever the situation is. That's a whole separate thing of preparedness altogether. But this is effectively to reduce your sound, your sight, and your smell signature to become less of a target of opportunity, to become less of something of a curiosity. So these are things to think about. You can implement them with pretty much without having to do much at all, except for maybe buy coolers if you don't have them, or keep in mind where you can get several bags of ice quickly enough to do anything as far as keeping food fresh and preserved. And again, always good to have flashlights, your candles, batteries, that sort of thing planned on. If you have a generator, whether it's a solar power generator or a conventional generator, you also have to think about recharging and refueling that, because even with the solar power generators, at some point, if you've got a panel, you're going to need to stick that panel someplace where it can get sunlight. That means it's got to be somewhere, either in a window propped up, on a balcony, wherever it is. Someone might see that, might realize what it is, and think, oh, they have power. I'll go knock on that neighbor's door. Maybe they can help charge up my cell phone, and then maybe they can help charge up my laptop, and then it keeps going from there. If it's not them, then it's the people next to them that find out afterwards, and it keeps spreading from that point. So you take all these things in consideration, work them into your plan, and then it becomes, again, another thing that will help you in the future should something like that happen, because you're thinking about it right now. Well, that's all I got for you on this one. Check out these videos that are going to come up in the end screens, and I'll catch you in the next one.